makes me wonder what, and if you don't know the answer to this, please tell me. But like, what was the creative decision behind Final Fantasy 16 and having that recorded, recorded in English first as opposed to Japanese? And how was that on your end, having to coordinate a Japanese company doing what is essentially an English story?
Yeah, because was 16 the first mainline Final Fantasy where that was the case, where it was recorded in English first?
Yes, the first mainline Final Fantasy. It wasn't the first game that Square Enix did.
Yeah.
I think we did have one game before that that was recorded in English first. Do you want to guess what it is? It's not Final Fantasy.
Square Enix?
I'll also give you a hint. There was a dog in it named Torgal.
Oh.
Not okay.
I know Torgal. Oh my god.
Yeah,
right,
I know the character.
I know Torgal. Oh, wait. Torgal is, I think he's Clive's dog, right? No? Yeah.
And there was also a dog named Torgal in the game that was also directed by Takai-san.
What?
I have no idea.
Final Fantasy 7 remake? I don't know. What is it? Okay, I don't know. I give up.
Put it up on the screen.
Torgal?
And you're gonna be like, oh.
So Torgal, type Torgal.
Torgal.
Type in Torgal.
Torgal Final Fantasy.
No, Torgal, just Torgal. Torgal dog.
Torgal dog.
Torgal dog, Square Enix, not Final Fantasy 16.
Okay. Magic the Gathering? No.
Torgal.
Oh,
Is it gonna pop up?
Yeah, it's all 16
It's all
now.
16.
You have to do minus.
Did you see
Down
something?
there?
Did you see it?
Right. My glasses are upside down.
Oh.
Wait, what?
Square Enix Tetsu's number.
Oh, because that's
that's
Nomura-san
that's
took that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Not 16.
Damn, 16 is...
People also ask, is Torgal a good boy?
Torgal sure is a good boy.
Torgal sure is a good boy.
I don't know. What's the answer? Are we allowed to...
Do we know it?
It's not Infinite Undiscovery, but it came out at around the same time.
Torgal.
This is gonna kill me, I feel.
You can put in Hiroshi Takai directs. Oh, you need to remove
Yeah, you gotta get rid of
Torgal. Just put in
just type in Square Enix Hiroshi Takai.
Yes!
Remnant.
Come on, guys!
Oh, Last
Yes.
Remnant.
Damn.
I never played Last Remnant.
You never played Last Remnant.
No,
I have not either.
Does it hold up? Should I play it?
Last Remnant is a...
I had a few of
It's
my
hard.
mates who
It's
played
hard.
it. Yeah.
Really?
How-
What
It
type
was.
of
I'm
game
going to
is
say
it?
it was ahead of its time.
Okay. That
It was
means
ahead of its
two
time.
things. It could be
It
either
was ahead of its
good.
time. But there was a Torgal in it also. It was the first game that Square Enix did that we did the English first.
Right.
Oh.
What made you guys decide on that?
I don't know. I think that was, again, it was a
There was
a Takai-san thing.
Right,
I think
There's quite a big gap between this and
Yes.
16, so
Yeah.
maybe they were a bit scarred by the process and want to do it again for a while.
possibly.
Enough time had passed where they'd forgotten it. Maybe
possibly.
it was,
Yeah.
But,
you worked on 16 though, right?
I did. I worked on Final Fantasy after working on 11 and moving on to 14, on to 14, A Realm Reborn with Yoshida-san,
You're
and then
still working on 14 as well, right?
Well, I do a little bit on 14. I've
okay.
pretty much passed off my translation lead duties around Shadowbringers. And that's when I moved over to the core team of Final Fantasy 16
Right.
to get that started up. And so while I still am a supervisor on Final Fantasy 14, most of the day-to-day stuff is handled by Paul, who I think you met.
Yes,
in the
yes,
last,
yes.
Yeah.
He is the lead now, and he has a team of several people that are in Japan as well as around the world that are pretty much doing what hopefully I was doing back then, but they're doing it better. I'd like to think. No, I'd like to think because they are doing it better. They're doing a great job.
Yeah.
But around Shadowbringers, I moved over to 16 because that was like a full-time type of thing.
What was that entire process like?
So,
I mean,
that's a loaded question.
I guess, okay, so
But-
I guess the good thing to start was, what was that conversation like about perhaps recording it in English first? Because I imagine that must have been done really early on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the first thing that when I joined the team and I get a a booth right next to My Hero-san, and he's like, "Okay, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to record in English first." And I'm like,
There's no discussion.
I'm like, okay. And I was like, why? It's like, well, because they wanted to create something that felt like a Western drama,
Right.
because they had grown up watching Western dramas. They'd grown up watching Indie Jones on Friday nights on the Japanese TV.
Right.
They had this was currently when I think the Game of Thrones, either the first or second season had just come out. And so they're watching this and they're all getting blown away by this.
Yeah.
They're playing games like Uncharted, they're playing games like The Witcher, and they're like, this is what we want to make. And we want to do it like this. And we want to have it be, again, like this global type of thing. They want to create something that feels Western.
Yeah.
But they also understand that the dev team is 99% Japanese.
Yes.
And so it's like, well, we have an image of what the West should be based on what we see on TV and movies, kind of like the West has an image of Japan based on what we see on TV and movies and anime.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think they understood enough to know that, like, well, we're not experts on the West. What we think is the West, we understand is probably not the West.
Yeah.
So we want it to be legitimate for users in the West, but we also want it to be what our image of the West is.
Right.
So they want to make it this thing that's not completely 100% Western. It's Western through their eyes, but something that's not going to be so jarring to people in the West that they're not going to want to play it.
Yeah.
So it's like this thin line that they're trying to walk. And so they brought me over because I had been with the company by then for about, I don't know, 15, almost 12, 15 years by then. And they had known me from working on 11 and 14 and other games. And they had, I guess we'd built up enough trust that they were okay with asking me these questions and saying, okay, what do we want to do here? How do we want to go with this? And they wanted that feeling of, they wanted to make a game that felt like it was a dub of a Western movie. And so, of course, if it's going to be a dub, or not a dub, like a sub version of a Western movie. So they want that English version first, and then to do the Japanese after that. Like they took a Western movie and then they put Japanese voice actors onto that to, and like a lot of the voice actors that they got for the Japanese version were not anime voice actors or game voice actors. They got voice actors for TV and movies that had done where, like I think one of them was
like
the guy
dubbing
that,
work.
they'd done dubbing work.
Right.
Like one of the guys was like, he was always Harrison Ford. And they got him, he's the voice of Harrison Ford in a lot of like Japanese.
Right.
And then they got that person to come in. And so they wanted it to feel more like a movie. Because again, Yoshi was like saying that like, this game is going to be less a game. It's more like a movie experience. Like it's like a 20-hour roller coaster where you're watching this,
I mean, even just the first 2 hours of that game, they were pretty epic.
I mean, that was a great prologue.
It might be the greatest like first hour and a half of video game like cutscenes ever. Like it was so cool. I wish I didn't get to play more though. I'm so annoyed. But I've done the opening twice. So is life. But that was so cool. So then I imagine deciding to do it and all the ideas sound good in your head.
Implementing it.
That was the thing. It's like
the conversation sounds good.
I think everyone thought that like, this is going to be a great idea. We can totally do this, but not realizing how difficult it was going to be. And the thing is, like, from my perspective, I knew how difficult it was going to be because pretty much my whole career at Square Enix had been the Japanese comes first.
Yes.
We have to figure out a way to match lip flaps, match timing, match quirky motions by the mocap actors.
And the whole time you got to schedule time zones as well. So and then that means there's only like a limited set of hours a day you can work with, really.
Yep. And I mean, there's so many things. And then also just having things change after you've recorded them and thinking, hey, I'd love to do this. And oh, we can't do that again. And I mean, just all of the logistical things, just the order of everything that I had already experienced that. So I knew it was going to happen. And I tried to let the team know, like saying, like, okay, we're ready to record now. And is it okay if we record now? Like, because once we record, that's it. And
no
they're
redos.
like, oh yeah, go ahead and record. And oh yeah, you can totally do ad-libs. It's like, okay. We went in, we recorded and do the ad-libs. They get the voice files back. It's like, oh, we can't use this. We need to rewrite it. And that's what happened. So the original script was written in Japanese by My Hero-san. Right. Then we got that script. Then myself and the other translator on the team, John Taylor, who is a veteran of a lot of the Dragon Quest games, basically brought him on because we were going to use British English. I'm an American.
Yes.
We needed to have a real Brit on to keep me grounded.
Nice.
Our editors were all British, as well as John, who is British himself. And so make sure things are on the level there.
Authentic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we took that whole script, we translated the whole thing. And again, when we were told to translate it, we're like, make this as natural as possible. Make it sound like it was written in English, is what we were told by My Hero-san. It's like, yes, you need to, follow the story beats, but if you need to change things to make them sound more natural, or you think like an order needs to be changed because it's more natural to have English flow this way than this way. He's like, go ahead and change it. But after we did that, then we went in and we had these meetings where a series of meetings that lasted probably about 3 or 4 weeks, where we went over every single line in the game and basically told him, this is how we translated it. This is how we did it differently. Anything that was a major shift from what was in the original Japanese, I basically told My Hero-san that this is how we changed it. And in those meetings, he would either say, okay, that's a localization thing. We're going to keep the Japanese as it is.
Yeah.
Or he would be like, okay, if the English is going to be this, I'm going to change the Japanese.
So you're like almost pitching every line essentially and trying to be like, okay, this is why I think this works.
And I think a lot of the stuff, especially a lot of like the banter between Clive and Sid, a lot of that banter, while there was some of it in the original Japanese, there wasn't as much of it. And I kind of saw it as a Nathan Drake Sully type of thing, where they're just constantly going back and forth, just
as you would if you're on a journey.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if you've got this grizzled old, veteran of many wars, he's gonna be like, you young fucks, all those open and whining like some, emo Generation X kid that Clive is.
Yeah.
And so, so they're just, this whole back and forth is us suggesting that it would be cool if, Sid could say this in response, and having it kind of be this back and forth. Because a lot of times you'll see that in at least a lot of the Japanese stuff, the stories that I had translated up until then, it was like a lot of conversations were one-sided. You'd have one person doing, I'm not going to say a lore dump, but they're just kind of explaining everything you need to know.
That does happen a lot.
And then the other character's just like, hi.
It's like, hold on,
And I was like, okay, that's great, but that's not how we have conversations, at least in the West. There's a lot of like, it's basically you're having playing
back and
catch.
forth.
It's back and
It's
forth.
a little too scripted otherwise, right?
And you have people, completing each other's sentences, cutting in, breaking off. And that's,
it's the natural flow of the conversation.
Right.
And while that isn't very Japanese, if they're trying to really make something that feels like it's from the West, then we kind of have to, we thought that, we'd have to follow these kind of, this conversation flow.
Right.
And so we changed a lot of that. And what was really cool is My Hero-san was like, I can hear that. I can see that. And he did have trouble kind of trying to make that natural in Japanese, because that's not how a lot of Japanese people have a conversation. But the understanding was that it's supposed to be Western anyway. And so they found a way to do it. And I think, there's a lot of iterations that they had to go through to get it perfect. But once we had that back and forth and we had the English locked, then we went into recording. And when we were in recording, we did do ad-libs, because in the booth there, unlike every project I'd worked on up until then, where the character had already been decided by the Japanese voice actor, no one had decided the characters yet. We had a vague idea of who we wanted them to be, but they weren't solidified yet. And so it was up to the actors in the booth, Ben Starr, who played Clive, Stuart Clark, who played Dion. All of these great actors were basically told, okay, you've read about your character, you've read all of their lines, you see their arc, let's make this character. And we spent the first few days kind of deciding on that character and those voices. So I would say that, the voice of Clive Rosfield is as much Ben Starr as it is me or My Hero-san. We all contributed to that voice, which was amazing.
Cool.
But then that voice file gets delivered to My Hero-san. He's like, oh, none of this is going to work. And then he rewrites all of the Japanese again. So the Japanese had to be rewritten again.
Right.
The thing was, though, is that the English is now recorded. And it's the source. And he's rewriting the Japanese. So it's like he's localizing now.
He's localizing the localization.
And the thing is, from my perspective, is like, that's what you do. You get the source and you localize it to make it the most natural in the source language. But then you get people who are like, oh, the English is so different from the Japanese. I'm like, well, actually.
There's also so many aspects that could be a reason why it changes. Even myself, when I've done voice acting, I've been doing lines and I'll say something or I'll say the line wrong or I'll put the words in the wrong order. They'll be like, actually, that sounds a lot better.
Yeah.
Or I'll say something, or I'll just spitball, and they'll be like, let's just try it. And
Yeah.
then it ends up working out. There's a
Yeah.
lot. People are so quick to be like, the translators, the localizers. It's
Yeah.
like, there's a lot. It's a
It's-
lot more
there's a lot
collaborative
more
than
nuance.
I think a lot of people would like to give it
Yeah.
credit
Yeah,
for.
for sure.
Yeah.
But also one thing that you noted that I think was really interesting, and you told me this when we spoke last time, and I thought was really interesting, is that your job is almost more so about writing and being a competent writer and telling stories, as opposed to just being a
Pure
translator. And
Yeah.
that's what makes it so difficult. And I
Yeah.
kind of stuck with me when you said that.
I mean, it is. I can, because I see both sides. I understand.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's the purist side that thinks the translation needs to be as close to the source as possible.
Yeah.
There's others that like, no, it needs to be as natural as possible. And I
Yeah.
think that, while both have their merits,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately I look at it as, I mean, language is different, and language
is.
carries so much with it.
Yeah.
So much that you can't see, so much that you can't see in a dictionary.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a word that maybe has been used in a certain TV show
Yeah.
will take on a different meaning that's in the dictionary because it's now part of pop culture because it was
Yeah.
used in this
Yeah.
way. And those are things that you can't know.
If you're not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and those are things that get conveyed in the word and maybe won't get conveyed in the translation. So they need to be added in different ways. And so what's ultimately the most important, at least from my perspective, after doing many years of localization, is what was the writer's intent? Was the writer, what reaction is the writer trying to get out of the
Yeah.
user? Are they trying to get them to laugh, to cry, to feel something? And if the translation, the ultimate localization does not, get that same reaction out of the
Yeah.
user, then all of a sudden you have a different user experience. If you have the Japanese users are crying, but the American users are not crying, then something's wrong with the localization, even if the translation is completely the same.
Yeah.
You need to, bring that in. And I
fascinating.
think that to do that requires writing skill as well as, because that's how the Japanese writers can, evoke those emotions, is because they're doing that with their skill as writers.
Yeah, right.
If you're not doing that in the English or the French or the German, then
Loses all nuance
Yeah,
and meaning.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
So-
think being able to work so closely to the creator helps a lot because, I think when you think about localization, sometimes I think writer intent 100% is the most important aspect of localization. Unfortunately, not every, translator localizer gets to work so closely with the creator to actually, so sometimes they're guessing the intents because funnily enough, I 100% understand everything that you went through because I had to do exactly the same thing as well because I made a short film that was animated by a Japanese animation studio. So I am the source material, which was, I wrote a screenplay written in English, which was translated over into Japanese for a Japanese production, which then I had to localize back into English. And I wanted to ask you a question because during my process, I almost thought of the Japanese characters and the English characters almost as two different people, kind of, because they are achieving the same story beats, but maybe how they convey that might be, there's a slight nuance in the differences of how they convey, how they talk or how they convey certain emotions. Almost like I think of myself, I'm, multilingual as we all here are, and English speaking me and Thai speaking me are two different people, almost. You know what I mean? Two different mannerisms, two different way of speaking. So that was the way that I approached localizing my own work. And I was wondering if you had any similar philosophy or thoughts around that as well.
I mean, I think again, because you mentioned that the Thai version of you and the Japanese version of you are different. It's because it's the culture that comes tied to those languages. And again, a lot of times we forget that there's so much culture in language and there's so much information behind each word that ultimately there is no exact one-to-one translation for anything. Because I mean, if we could do it like manga does and put a little star by a word and then
Translation notes,
and try to explain the culture behind it. But when you're speaking, you can't do that. You can't stop to do that every time. And so ultimately then it becomes, you have a choice between either just ignoring that cultural beat or changing into something that's going to feel natural for the source language, for the source audience. And ultimately, who's playing the game in English? A lot of times it's, people that are native English speakers
Yes.
that maybe live in those Western cultures.
Right.
And so if the majority of our audience is that, having something that feels natural in that language, and you're getting those beats and you're getting the, maybe we're doing a different joke to get a laugh, but if we're getting the laugh, it's more important than maybe getting across
The exact same joke.
joke in
Yeah.
Japanese that's just going to
Yeah.
fall flat.
Right.
Because then the user's not going to laugh, and
Yeah.
you've kind of ruined that situation when the author wanted the user to laugh in that situation.
Right.
Oh.